Good morning. Thank you all for coming. Let me make sure how we got this working here. Okay, so a little background on myself. The camp, and it's Quesnelle, and for those of you that are not familiar with saying the name, just think of Chanel. I'm wearing Quesnelle today. Anyways, this area of British Columbia is the reason that British Columbia joined Confederation and the railroad went west is where we are. The historic production in the area, there's about 101 creeks that have produced placer gold in this area. It's a very profound area for gold mining. It's been quite successful. In the area itself, I've actually put 2 mines into production in this area. One was the Quesnelle Gold Quartz Mine, is where we're working right now, and one that I put into production, which was Kinross initially put into production back in 1992. It was their very first mine. It was called the Quesnelle Gold Quartz Mine, and for the QR mine, and then the Barkerville Gold Mine, which I would put into production in 2014. We'd be taken over for some $338 million by a Cisco development. They would then take the company and spin it out into another junior called Cisco Royalties, bought the company for $338 million. And then they would spin it out into a new junior called Cisco Development. And that is currently going into production this year as a much larger mine than I had set it up as. It's a 6 million ounce deposit that we discovered. And it's going to start out doing 220,000 ounces a year for the first 3 years. And then the next 9 years, it's anticipated to do somewhere in the neighborhood of 160,000 ounces for the next 9 years. And that'll be about 2 million ounces of the known 6 million ounce deposit that they have right now. So this is going back to the 1920s when the mine was first into production. This whole area of British Columbia has all been overlain. These are the statements you need to know. This is where we're going to focus on today, and I'm not going to go through a whole lot of slides. It's more about the area, and it's because of this area. Just let me see if we've got a pointer on this as well. I'm not sure if we do, but you can see the, that's back, that's forward. Is there a pointer on here? Is that a pointer? Maybe not. Anyways, you can see the town of Wells. Down at the bottom, there's Cariboo Lake, and this is the property that I assembled all the way up to the Rimrock claims in the middle. This is the gray area. That's about 64 kilometers long, and it's in the center of the property that we actually made the very first discovery. We started working there in 1994, and the discovery we would make in 2000, and at the time we were trying to develop an open pit mine. We were underground working, drilling up holes, and we thought we'd outlined about a 1 million ounce pit. It was going to be open pit mining. We worked on that for about almost 6 years. In 1999, the price of gold was less than $300 an ounce, so we thought if we could find a higher grade component and blend it with the open pit from underground, we could make an economic model if gold ever went to $300 an ounce. That was sort of the model we were working with at the time. There's a fellow that came up and was looking at the open pit. They'd put a couple of mines into production. They were working on doing this one. And he's going, these are the really interesting rocks that you're drilling, Frank. This is something like what we see in the Abitibi Gold Belt, which is somewhere between, for those of you that don't know, it's in Quebec, Ontario. From Timmins to Val d'Or has produced some 300 million ounces of gold on a greenstone contact. And this Abitibi Belt is much like the similar rocks that we see here. The age is quite different, but doesn't make any difference. The rocks are really the same sort of rocks. So we continued working on that for a couple of years, and then in the spring of 2000, we were drilling the project, and we'd gone through the quartz vein and into a rock that we hadn't recognized as being gold-bearing before. The discovery was made. We would then see the stock go to several dollars a share, and we would then get later taken out, some 14 years later, we would go through all of the development process of putting it into production and be taken out by Cisco Royalties. I then sort of retired. Staff came to me and asked if I'd be interested in looking at another project. Up at the top, you can see the small little claim group up there. This is the Quesnelle Gold Quartz Mine. It's right alongside the Fraser River, and you can't see the Fraser River, unfortunately, because of the coloring on this, and we'll change that going forward. But this was the area that they sunk one of the very first shafts ever sunk in British Columbia on a mine, and they sunk it on what would turn out to be a greenstone contact, and that's what led to the discovery of what we're doing. And when we were advised that this was the greenstone contact, which we'd been looking for some 20-odd years, and this is where it was. And the way it was found was when they sunk the shaft back in 1865, that they went into the country rock that was surrounding the quartz veins, and in the quartz veins is all this native gold. And they had pyrite, and there's gold encapsulated in the pyrite, but cyanide wouldn't be developed until about the 1880s. So they're looking at all this, then they were calling it fool's gold at the time, but it was surrounding all of these quartz veins. So they would take it out from down to the bottom of the shaft and take it to the top. In the early 1970s, the government of British Columbia took it upon themselves that all of the old mines in the province of BC, they were going to go and bulldoze them all over and reclaim all of the property. And this was one of those properties. So everything all up top of the Quesnelle had all been bulldozed over, and then they planted trees on it. So the trees are now 50 years old, and all of the rock that they'd dug from down below and they brought up top had all been bulldozed over, and it was all over the place. But we didn't know where the shafts or anything were. So we would then go to the museum, not to the library or anything, but to the museum and see what they had in the museum about this old mine. And we started putting everything together on it, and that sort of led us to where we are today. We started drilling a couple of holes. The first few holes, we got some joy. We've drilled 15 holes on it at present, up to today. We drilled, and what happened was, as a staff member approached me on it and asked if I'd be interested in getting involved in it, and I said, you know, I'm really enjoying retirement, I don't want to do that. And she said, we've got some really interesting results I'd like you to look at. I said, sure. So we popped a couple of holes in, we got some joy out of it, and then in January of this year, we pulled one hole, and it was about 40 meters of a couple of grams, and I'm going, you know, I think we figured this thing out. So we went on and drilled a couple more holes. I went on the board as president CEO, and raised a couple of $1 million for the company in March of this year, and then we drilled a couple more holes after that, and we started seeing some bigger widths to the stuff. So the hole 8 would come out with a 263-meter intercept of about a little bit better than a third of a gram. And I'm going, you know, this is a really big system. We did some geophysics on it, found that there's 2 parallel trends to the thing. We then flew some LiDAR over the property and got some really good joy out of it, and it looked really good. Started putting a couple more holes into it. Then we pulled one a week or two ago, and it had we had 143 meters of 1.5 grams. We reported one just last Tuesday, and we had 203 meters of 0.8 of a gram. But within that, there's 143 meters that ran just well over a gram, just over a gram, 1.01 of a gram. So we're onto a very large system, and there's 2 parallel trends. They're showing some really good joy, and they're long. One's, as I mentioned, 3.5 kilometers long. The other one's 4.5 kilometers long, and we're going to just keep working on this and see if we can continue making it much larger than what it is. The system goes deep. I've been doing this for well over 30 years, and I've drilled an awful lot of drill holes in my career, but I've never seen widths like this in a gold deposit. You see widths like this in a copper porphyry style deposit, but you don't see them in gold deposits like this. So this is really very unique. It's got some lookalikes. The newfound gold deposit that you see in Newfoundland is a lookalike to this. There's another deposit south of the Cariboo Lake. It's called Spanish Mountain. It's a 5 million ounce deposit, and it's a bit of a lookalike, only it's got a little bit more graphite in it too than what we have. So in this camp, you know, you've got the QR mine down below that we used to own. Down below of it, you've got the Spanish Mountain. It's a 5 million ounce deposit. Up in Wells, there's a 6 million ounce deposit that we actually identified. North of where you see Hicks and just a little over, there's the Blackwater deposit. It's a 12 million ounce deposit. The grade of it is 0.65 of a gram. And that goes into production next year. There's 600 men on site right now getting ready to put that going. So this area there's gold deposits all over it. There's several north of where we are as well. And there's further south of the QR. There's also Gibraltar. So this whole belt is really unique, and it's much like what you'd see between the Timmins and Val-d'Or camps. So this is a whole new camp. It's really unexplored, and it's starting to get larger, and we're looking forward to making it as much larger as we can. We're having fun doing it. I've got the same old staff that we had 10 years ago that made the discovery back in 2024 years ago. We made the discovery, but it's the same staff that was with me right till the end, and we're working on it. We've got currently 7 geologists that are working on this, some structural geologists that were part of the Newfound Gold people, and it's a very exciting thing, and I encourage y'all to have a closer look at the company. We're continuing to drill. We only do small private placements at a time. We have a small market cap. We've got a $10 million market cap, and when you think of the last company that we sold for some $338 million, and then you look at this market cap, there's a lot of legs to go. We're getting phone calls from some of the larger companies around. The people that actually started the QR mine have actually called us. Sean Rusin, that's actually president of Osisko Development that has our last deposit. I saw him at Beaver Creek a couple of weeks ago, and he's going, these drill holes that we're pulling are just fantastic, Frank. I'm now a shareholder of your company, as is my daughter. So we're having lots of fun. We've been working on improving our land package. There'll be some news coming out on it. And we've got some more exciting drill holes that are actually coming as well. The beauty about where we're working is that you can work 12 months of the year, and we're about 4 kilometers from the highway to where we're actually doing the exploration. So it's got good road access all year round. There's hydro there. There's an infrastructure. There's a small town. We rent a whole motel, so everybody's got a place to stay and stuff. So all of those make it a much nicer project than some of the other projects that have a similar grade to what we have, but are in more remote areas within Canada. So that makes it really quite unique. And as I mentioned, most importantly, we can work all year round. We drill 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. There's 3 drills on site. We're currently only using 1. And every drill hole that we've drilled so far has got gold mineralization of very significant widths. So it's only the beginning of the story. We've only, like I mentioned, we've only drilled 15 holes. And this is a brand new discovery. It's never been recognized as being gold bearing before in this area. And we've stepped out some of the holes from the earlier holes that we put in. We've stepped out 1 kilometer, and we're still seeing really significant gold mineralization. And we've got more holes to report going forward. So there's lots more I can tell you, but I don't want to waste a whole bunch of people's time on this sort of thing, and I encourage you to come by and ask any questions if you like. But again, this is new, and it's exciting, and we've got a well-experienced team, and as I mentioned, we have put 2 mines into production in this camp. There's not many people at this show that can brag about doing something like that. It's really quite significant, and they've been taken over. So we're not going to put this one into production. We've been surrounded. As you can see, the gray property that you see, that's all Osisko Development's property now. They've come and staked up on 3 sides around us. The 4th side is the wrong rock, so they didn't bother. So it's a natural that we believe that Osisko, or if somebody takes over Osisko, but we will be taken over by one of those groups. It's not our ambition to put this into production. It's actually our ambition to sell it. So I encourage you to be shareholders, come along for the ride, and pay attention to what we're doing. It's a really exciting project. Thanks an awful lot for coming.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I have a couple of questions for you here. So you're in this historic region.
Sure.
And I'm always curious on, obviously, when you get hold of assets, what is in the mind of anyone selling assets, and in this particular case to you?
Well, first off, this wasn't sold. The ground was staked by a previous employee.
Yeah.
And
so that merged into this.
That merged into it, yeah. So not many people sell things up here. Usually people that get them, getting people to sell things is a bit challenging sometimes. Everybody thinks they got a gold mine. Nobody wants to sell it.
Yeah. And also, if you mentioned here, and I will expose my ignorance then.
Sure.
You mentioned two things. The deep system, and you were sure that the gold system, as it were, should be deeper. How deep is it, as you said?
So these are mesothermal veins, so the depth is unknown, but historically these things go down. I mean, there's mines in Canada that go down more than a mile deep.
Okay, yeah, exactly, because that would be the question. Yeah. And I believe that you, if you could just remind us here, you have been doing some drillings, and those were 250 meters, or is it 500?
No, so our biggest hole was 263 meters. Then we had a 203 meters, 143 meter intercept, 136 meter intercepts. They're very large. These are not small veins. They're big.
Mm. And am I right in understanding then that whenever you do a private placement, or let's call it a capital injection,
sure.
then you do that in order to, let's say, facilitate the cost of the drilling?
Sure.
Is that the way to look at it?
And we do things a little bit different. Having been on the other side of the coin for almost 10 years, I learned that most companies do private placements, and I'm guilty of doing that as well, where you might do a private placement and we'll make up a number. You do the private placement at 20 cents a share, and then you we're going to do the warrant at, warrant's going to be at 35 or 40 cents a share. Well, sometimes the stock never gets to the 35 or 40 cents a share. And, the shareholder loses out because they don't get the share, and the company loses out because they don't get the money. And I'm going, that formula is just wrong. So I've made up my own new formula that we started in January. So we did a 10-cent round, and we put a 5-year warrant on it. And in the first year, the warrant was at 12 cents. And the second year, it's at 14. And the third year, it's 16, then 18, and 20 cents in the fifth year. By the time we sold the private placement, the 5-year warrant was in the money. The stock was trading at over 20 cents a share, and we're doing a 10-cent financing. Then we just did a 15-cent financing, and by the time we closed the 15-cent financing, the stock was at 20 cents. And we put the warrant in the first year was at 20 cents, second year at 22, and the third year at 25. So when we closed the financing, the 15-cent financing, the shares were trading at 20 cents, so the warrants were in the money. So the company wins. So you never have this roadblock where all these warrants are going to come free trading or coming at you, and you've got this wall of stock that's going to bring the price down. So the warrants are always in the money. So when the shareholder buys the stock, buys the unit, is that the warrants are there, and there's no pressure for them to sell or whatever. They can sell it whenever they want because it's in the money. So it's like having money in the bank almost. So that's the way we do it.
Yeah, because I got the feeling that it was a little bit different.
Totally different.
Let's say
I don't know anybody's ever done that before.
And also you have an option on the property for a third party, and you are neighboring to a bigger company. So that will allow you to sell assets in order to focus on, let's say, one project or.
Sure. So in this area, so this property, there's no royalties or anything on this property as well. So that's really a bonus. We've been surrounded on 3 sides by Cisco royalties. Cisco development, and it's a natural. I mean, Sean Rusin came up to me when we were in Beaver Creek a couple of weeks ago, and he says, Frank, and we haven't spoken in nearly 10 years, and he's going, those drill holes you pulled were just amazing. He says, I want you to know that I went and bought shares, and my daughter bought shares, and you're onto something really big here, and we expect that Cisco development will probably come and take us out sooner or later. And as we keep coming up with these holes, do we buy the company at $10 million market cap or 30 or 40 or 50, whatever. I mean, the last one they paid $338 million for. So it's going to get taken out, and they will buy it.
And would you dare to have a time frame, perhaps not on the buyers, because it's difficult to be a mind reader here, but how do you see your development going forward? Are we talking 3 years or or should we change that to say 5 new drill holes? What shall we be looking for?
I don't know. I would like to think that we'd probably put in somewhere north of 60 drill holes between now and next year. At that point, you can probably, on the back of well, now you don't really do resource estimates because all of the other companies in town either have Leapfrog or Minfile, and they can go do their own calculation as to what you have. So everybody's looking at the company. And when you pull widths like this and grade like this, all of the majors, everybody's looking at what we're doing and stuff. So I believe that in the next 12 months, 24 months, that somebody's going to approach the company to come at it.
Interesting. So the key word here is everybody's looking at you, and then that would be the lesson for us, that we should look at you as well.
Well, we've done it
you.
before. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all.